Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Laboucan with Rocks and Stocks News. We've got another of our series of interviews with CEOs, and Joey Freeze runs Xali Gold, XGC. I think they're a very underappreciated junior exploration company. Their key project is the El Oro project in Mexico. What really shocks me is that this is an area that had 8 million ounces of gold produced historically off of 2 veins. There's 50 known veins on the project, and this is a spectacular exploration project. So we're going to talk about the news. Joey, thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much for interviewing me, having me hosting.
No worries, Joey. Okay, so in the news release, there was some key information. There was some high-grade gold intersections at El Oro, including 16 grams of gold, 30 grams of gold, 12.8, 13.7, 18 grams. And I really like this quote. Joey said, and I quote, "Our recent acquisitions in Western Mexico give us great near-surface exploration and near-term production opportunities. But El Oro remains our flagship project, and we're really looking forward to getting back to drilling there. The El Oro district, which we hold 100% of, is a well-known historic mining district with over 8 million ounces of gold equivalent produced historically from only 2 of more than 50 known veins. While we know we have a stacked boiling system similar to Juanicipio held by Mag Silver, by the way, that is now going into production, and I continue, and others in Mexico, the new 3D modeling has really helped us understand the spatial relationships between the various high-grade intersections in different veins. The disseminated and high-grade intersections are literally stacked above one another, indicating a structural control with a vertical component. The disseminated gold mineralization in the tufaceous horizon is also indicative of underlying feeder vein systems." End quote. Got a lot to unpack there, Joey. I'll let you roll on it.
Okay, super. I'm actually going to ask if it's okay if I pull up a slide or two.
No
Is that
problem. Yep, perfect.
okay? Okay, so what you're looking at here is exactly what I just described. So this is the San Rafael vein, and what you're seeing in the darker area here is what got mined out. So we were targeting underneath, historic mining to see if the vein continues at depth, and of course, more importantly, if the gold and silver continues. And we did this in several areas of San Rafael, and we're able to get nice gold and silver numbers underneath the old workings, which showed, first of all, that it continues at depth. Now, your average vein is low sulfidation system in the world precipitates gold and silver over 200 meters. So call this, it's not exactly 200 meters, but if this is the 200 meters, then people, past explorers, just draw a line and say end of mining, end of mineralization. And so our target in several areas in the El Oro camp was drilling underneath the old workings to prove that the gold and silver continued at depth. Now, in our first 2 holes, we lost them in old workings. So we couldn't prove anything in San Rafael vein with those 2 holes. But our 3rd hole did intersect gold and silver, as you can see, 13.7 grams gold and 6.5 grams silver over 3 meters. So that
Right
showed
at the intersection of the vein and the fault.
Yeah, we thought, I mean, we're projecting that at the time that it was faulted off because it seemed to be, some displacement there. But in any case, so we hit it. So we know San Rafael continues, and that's a great depth below the 200-meter average. So hence, that's what we talk about, a stacked boiling system where you don't just get your 200 meters of mineralization. It keeps the fluids keep going up and down, and so they precipitate another time and another time. And you could have an ore body here, and you could have an ore body here, or you can just have it moving up and down and it's consistently, precipitating gold and silver. And what we find in El Oro period is that we never have we don't have anywhere a gold, a silver, and then base metals. It's overlapping. We do get some base metals, but the whole thing's overlapping. Hence we call it a stack system. And I'll show you another slide in one second.
Hold on before you switch slides there. That is a pretty impressive hit, because you're at least 200 meters below the old workings, and you tagged 13.7 grams of gold over 3 meters. And it looks like you just kind of caught the edge of it.
That's what we think, yes. And actually, you're right. I wasn't going to switch slides yet because I want to show you some other things that I just will show you another slide to explain the stack systems. But in any case, so the interesting thing here is that the two holes that didn't get to San Rafael because we lost them in old workings did find two other veins in the hanging wall of San Rafael that have very nice grades. And they have, as you see, 30 grams gold with 3 grams silver, but then also 18 grams gold with 137 grams silver. And then you also have very high silver, 372 grams silver with little gold. So there's a lot going on here. It's not just, as I said, your typical system where you get your gold, your silver, and then your base metals. And now we're in different structures.
And that's representative of a lot of these epithermal vein systems, in that oftentimes they're blind. They don't come to surface, and you are you have those potential for pleasant surprises. And I can see you got a couple pleasant surprises there.
Yeah. And then add to that the disseminated mineralization in the overlying volcanics, where we have 75 meters of 1 gram gold and 5 grams silver. That just says there's really a huge vertical occurrence here, some structural control that's got a verticality to it. And so for a while, we really wanted to get into that. When we finished, we put all our information together, and we were trying to do a 3D model, and then we finally did. And let me first of all go to the stacked boiling system explanation. So here's where we drilled beneath old workings in San Rafael, and found.
By the way, to our viewers, that's what Joey's showing there is a classic epithermal vein system that model.
Yeah. So it's, this is reality, this is model. And so we drilled below the San Rafael workings, in the San Rafael vein, below the workings, got a nice head of 13 grams. Above that got disseminated gold and silver in the overlying volcanics, but we also got a mineral called buddingtonite. And buddingtonite occurs in the sinter zone, and the sinter zone always sits well above the ore body. And so working with Peter Magott at the time,
Joey, the sinter zone is kind of like a hot spring, isn't it? Is that? Yes, it is. Okay.
You get a lot of chalcedonic silica as well. And it sits well above the ore body, such that this sinter zone, this buddingtonite, is too close to the San Rafael ore body. So it's indicative of a deeper ore body, which is hence the stacked boiling system, because you boiled here and then you boiled down here. And it could be continuous or it could be separate ore bodies. But this is the model, and that is how they found Juanicipio, is from a buddingtonite sinter zone sitting very high, and they drilled. And as you know, Juanicipio was, as you just said, a blind discovery.
And by the way, it's in production now, and when it's in full commercial production, that will be one of the 2 lowest grade sources of silver on the planet. These epithermal vein systems are very rich.
Highest grade, I think you meant to say.
Exactly, like the one in Japan there, Hishikari.
Yeah, one of the highest grades in the world. And then, so that's, I keep jumping back and forth, but, this is the reality. This is exactly what we found. So we're trying to understand it and then put that in the picture of this model, very indicative that we have another deeper ore body. and that, but San Rafael hasn't died out yet either from what's been mined, um, and
Yeah,
then
because that's a 200-meter down, deeper intersection that you got half a gram or half an ounce of gold.
200 meters, it's around 400, yeah,
Oh, is
from
it really? Oh, the whole zone so far.
yeah, from where this is actually an 800-meter hole, but if you look from top of mining, it would be 300-ish, yeah, three to
Okay,
four.
okay. So
And then,
almost double the size.
yes, exactly. And then this is a 3D model we've been building. So what we, and it's complicated, I won't explain it all, but this is all the past historic mining, so all the muck samples, so we know the kind of grades they had there. And then this is our discovery holes on the Mexico Esperanza border area, and just trying to understand how we come at it, because you have to now come perpendicular to these veins, but you've got a cross-cutting. This is the cross-cutting structural control that we think is northeasterly, the veins being northwesterly. So you've got to have, so you're drilling, as we show here, coming obliquely to everything. So not perpendicular to anything, but so it's been a complicated zone, but now we understand how to drill it. So very excited to be able to get back in there, and we just started applying for permits with the understanding that it'll take at least probably 6 months to get those permits.
Okay. That what blows me away, Joey, is that you're looking at something here that produced 8 million ounces and it's underexplored on those veins alone,
Yes.
let alone all the other veins, and then the potential to find more blind veins. Like you were drilling for under that one big San Rafael mine, and you tagged two that were blind veins, and that's what made Juanicipio, blind veins that don't come to surface.
Yeah.
So it's a massive cluster of underexplored veins where there was lots of high-grade production of
Yes.
gold.
San Rafael vein alone produced 4 million ounces of gold and 44 million ounces silver over an average of 200 meters vertical. In some places deeper, but that was the
Joey,
average.
imagine if that was in Canada or Nevada, or Alaska. That would be Swiss cheese by now with drill holes.
Exactly.
So there is, before we came on, I did some homework and I went and looked at a lot of images that you have. Folks, if you watch that or look at their news release that was out yesterday, you'll know, you go to the website and you're going to see a lot of images, and there's a heck of a lot of data that you can now help target things better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's amazing. It's great. It's fantastic.
So you're awaiting permits. I think that this represents a very good project that is underappreciated. And then you're also doing work on your Newfoundland projects.
Yes, our first round of sampling from Newfoundland has over 200 ppb gold, but that's not as exciting as we'd like. But we're working with Windfall Geotech to understand, putting all the regional data together and see what drill targets we can come up with, because we did get very high grade gold in heavy mineral concentrate samples, and we do have mineralization on the property, so it's very indicative that we're close to one of the structures that is very very significant in controlling high grade.
The one she's talking about is the project that Marathon. Is it Marathon? I keep forgetting the names. And that's the Valentine Lake structure. These are big cracks in the earth that go down very deep, indicative of the potential for an orogenic gold system. And, these aren't simple to find. You've got to be on the right structure, and then you've also got to have some gold mineralization. So it's very early days, but there are some sniffs there that suggest being so close to 3 million ounces of gold just on the other side of your property boundary, or not very far, in the same structure, this is a highly prospective property.
Yes, and we are surrounded by other juniors who are drilling and getting some nice results as well. So it's not just Marathon. I mean, obviously Marathon's the one who's found the ore body that's going in production, but there's a lot of other players in the area that, as I say, are getting some really interesting, good results.
One of them I know well, that's True Precious Metals, which is a sponsor of my website. They're just early days as well. They're on that same structure. They're hitting, and then below them, there's another company that's hitting and looks like they have over 1 million ounce gold potential. So this whole corridor of that Valentine Lake structure seems very highly prospective, especially in Newfoundland, which is probably the hottest gold exploration camp in the world right now.
Yes, it is for sure. Yeah.
Okay, so getting back to El Oro, I think that this has the potential to be a company maker project. I mean, there's not many places where you can go where there was 8 million ounces of gold produced historically off of 2 veins that are underexplored and 50 known veins. And, you know, these clusters, I mean, Fresnillo, that the city of Fresnillo, which is one of the lowest cost producing places of gold or silver anywhere, that's a cluster similar to what you're looking at El Oro. But then I was doing some more homework, and you've got a whole set of another cluster not very far to the west of El Oro. Let's talk a little bit about that, Joey.
Sure. You want me to share my screen again?
Sure. Love seeing those maps. There we are.
So here you can see we're showing here is that this cluster is all covered by the younger volcanics that I showed in my cross section. So those were all hidden. They're found blind or found underground. San Rafael is this one. It had 3 mines on it: El Oro, Esperanza, and Mexico mine. And then there was Veta Verde. And Veta Verde produced 3 million ounce gold equivalent itself, and was an entirely just a blind dream. Somebody said, well, if they've got that much gold on that side of the mountain, so the mountain sits here. So
in the middle of El Oro and Verde?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Verde, they just drifted. They just said blind drifted coming from the.
Oh my, are you serious?
Covered it, and they paid it. They took 2 years to drift it, and they paid it off in the first month because they hit right on a bonanza zone. But in any case, this is all covered, so this is all hidden. This area was open. It outcrops, and that was mined as early as the Spaniards in the late 1500s. And mostly they mined silver, but we've drilled underneath the major structures here and intersected both silver and gold. So we know that these systems are alive and well at depth, and then all of these systems, because we drilled underneath Veta Verde. We tried to get underground there, and unfortunately we were just getting to where we wanted to put a drill station, and then lost the ground. It's much more stable on this side, but in any case, we've drilled from surface so far, and some drilling on San Rafael from underground. But in any case, that's the big camp, yes. And then we've even got zones further west of this and up here. So it's a huge district.
And those were found by outcrop. Even though you might have outcrop, there's still the potential for blind veins in even if you have outcrop.
Very true. Yeah, absolutely.
Like I was walking around a project in here in Mexico, not very far from the Milagros mine, and you know, you see some really thin little quartz veins coming to surface, and you don't know what that looks like as you get a little bit deeper. You know, you start poking holes around there and you can find those. I mean, look at the similarities at the project to the west. You don't have nearly the strike extent that you do in the El Oro, but some more drilling, and that suggests that it could get a lot longer and wide open at depth.
Yeah.
Exactly. So the first priority would be drilling at El Oro and then
San
drilling.
Rafael in this area, right at the Mexico Esperanza border, because as I, that's where we found all those stacked veins that have the vertical continuity to high grade. So that's our key area to really prove up this system, how this system works,
Yeah.
and finish with lots more drilling on San Rafael. Then we'll come over to Veta Verde and maybe another drill going on over here at the same time.
Now, I'm glad you brought that point up. You spoke about it earlier, Joey, but I don't hope it's not lost on people that in the model of these epithermal vein systems, oftentimes you're only looking for about a vertical distribution of gold of 200 meters or so, 300 meters. When you have a stacked system, you got the potential of doubling that and then having a base metal component below that. But what this is all indicative of is a long-lived system that's pumping those fluids up into those veins over a very long period of time. And that's what you're looking for to get enriched grades.
Exactly.
So I think at Juanicipio, their vertical distribution is about 350 meters or something like that, Joey?
I'm not even sure. I don't, yeah.
And which is a little bit bigger than the traditional, but again, that shows the potential for a long-lived system, and that's exactly what you want in these epithermal vein systems. Now, Joey, I was going to ask you a question. Can you see any, crustiform, caliform in the veins?
Yeah, quartz after calcite and all the very typical low sulfidation features. Yes, very much.
So again, that's indicative of a long-lived system where you get like inside that vein, it's like you can see that there's been multiple phases of pumping of the fluids up into there.
Yeah.
And that's classically what you see in something like a Hishikari. If you do there's a lot of pictures. If you do a Google search for Hishikari, you're going to see that kind of core.
Yes, and I'm sure we have pictures on our website, but I'm going to make sure we do because we've got a lot of pictures of our core that is very similar to his.
Now, have you guys been able to go into those underground workings and do any sampling right off of the vein?
Well, interestingly enough, we in the San Juan Tunnel, which we have allowed the municipality to have a tourist facility there. So we let tourists go underground to a certain degree. We drilled from underground, and we actually got into an area where the San Rafael was mined out, but it was filled with backfill.
Okay.
And tried to get across it there, but we supported 40 meters wide of backfill, which means the vein was 40 meters wide in that location. And yes, tons of samples of the beautiful crustiform and quartz.
Get any pictures?
Well, we have lots of samples.
Oh, do you?
Yes, I'll send you some pictures and I'll make sure they're on our website.
Like channel samples?
Yeah. Well, that was backfill. So we have up to 14 grams gold in the backfill.
Wow. Wow. So this thing's wide open, Joey, and it's like it's sitting under the nose of everybody that's not paying attention.
That's very true. Yeah.
So I know that things in different jurisdictions of Mexico, sometimes that permitting can go a little bit quicker. Are you hopeful that you might get it faster than 6 months, or?
Well, we've just started on the road, and we've never had problems with permitting there before. So that would say to me that, and also we have a very good relationship with the municipality as far as allowing them to do tourism in our tunnel, but also the tailings reprocessing operation that's coming up. So we've got great relationships. So I would expect that things could go a little more smoothly, but you know, you have to do everything by the book, so we'll see.
Well, that's very interesting to me because in here in Zacatecas, where there's been where I live, there's been production for 500 years. And one of the first mines, they do that exact same thing, Joey, where they actually have a restaurant there and you
Yes.
can go underground to eat, and they have tours through there. I don't know if people really understand how historically important mining is in, like, if you drive down the highway here in Zacatecas, there's statues of miners. There, you know, it's a hugely important part of the culture
Yes.
of many places in Mexico. Like, you know, I don't know if people understand that this is a tourist attraction.
Yeah. In El Oro, there's a palace and there's an opera house. And the opera house is absolutely amazing. They still get a lot of very highly known singers in there, but all the locals do all their own events, and the acoustics are phenomenal.
And the locals all know that that happened because of mining. That's
Exactly.
why it's such a rich culture.
Yeah.
Like, there, you know, a lot of places in the world, Joey, you know, miners are not held in high esteem, sadly. Sometimes, you know, fairly, but here in Mexico, it's a hugely important part of the culture, and they want mining. They know that that's high-paying jobs and lots of money coming into their local areas.
And attitudes are now, of course, share the wealth. So
Yeah, yeah, it's not like the old days when we've been around the block a few times, Joey, and it's not like the old days. Now it's inclusion, consultation, respect. All of those things are important. And get a little bit into, before we close, Joey, why don't you talk a little bit about that, the mining in the old workings that are, how you are participating and the community is participating, as well as the guys who are going to mine those tailings.
yeah, absolutely. So um, when we first arrived in El Oro, which we arrived there because Luisman had been there and done a deal with which became Gold Corp, and then we were the junior who got to get in there. There was already a tourism facility on Veta Verde, and it was private, and it was really phenomenal. And when we wanted to start developing the old workings there, just to get back into drill from underground, we were able to get a really good relationship going with the owner of the museum. And what we did there is he had put pumice down on the floor, on the, you know, where everybody was walking, and our we got a scoop tram in there, and it really didn't hurt that floor. So we would just alternate. The scoop tram would go out in when the tourists weren't there, of course, and we supplied all sorts of safety equipment that they hadn't had before. But we would just alternate. And certainly on a Sunday or a Saturday when there were more tourists there, we would just not work. But we worked together. And in fact, the tourists love to see an operating scoop tram and see that there's really miners there, so to speak. And then that's on the Veta Verde side, which is actually in Michoacan. On the El Oro side of the actual town of El Oro, then we were approached to see if the town could come and use our San Juan tunnel, and they built their own sort of facility access to the mouth of it, but then they put in a nicer floor and such, and they're actually putting in an elevator in our shaft. Now, it's not operational yet, and I have concerns about safety, but in any case, this was their idea, and they did get a lot of state funding for that. And so, again, it's very synergetic. When we need to work in there, we'll work at night or work when the tourists aren't there. And in fact, a lot of our work was previously and will be beyond where the tourists go. They're really only in, you know, the first 50 meters or 100 meters. But in any case, it's very synergetic, and people love to see what is real mining, as long as they understand that we have a good attitude of sharing the value. And we had programs when we were drilling and such. We brought Save the Children in. We've brought them into many localities in both Peru and Mexico in our, with our various companies, to just see what is needed from the community. That, rather than us try and get into serious programs of helping social issues, let Save the Children come and do it. And then we also had agricultural assistance where we were helping trial farming, growing of various crops and figuring out what could help them better. So there's 1,000 things you can do that benefit people while you're in exploration. But then, of course, with the attitude that once you're producing, you're doing a lot more. Now, those tailings is another level
Before
of.
you get into the tailings,
Yes.
one of the things that I've always believed, and I've done some consultation in the past in difficult areas where there's some opposition, in Canada mainly. And a lot of times my feeling is that the locals, they just see a big hole in the ground. They don't really understand what's actually going to happen. So this work that you're doing is not just for now, it's showing people of the future of that this is different. Here's what we're really looking at.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of education pays long-term dividends for the company and the community.
Of course. Yeah. Let them participate in what we're doing. Lots of people end up, studying geology, mining, environment, things that they can have a very, get a good education and have an interesting job.
So go back to the tailings. Sorry, I interrupted you.
That's great. So the tailings, what happened is, of course, we knew there was some good grade in the tailings, gold and silver, sitting there, and it's sitting in the town, and fairly dangerous, to be honest, because there were a lot of erosion, made a lot of holes in the pile and such. So in any event, in 2013, 12 and 13, we started talking to the municipality. And the reason it's municipality is that anything on surface, so they have the surface rights. And if you own a mine with tailings, of course the mine owns the tailings, but once it's changed hands, changed ownership, then the tailings now go to the surface rights owner. They had tried to sell the tailings at one time for clay, but it wasn't, the quality wasn't there. So in any event, we did our own resource testing. We came up with a resource of 120,000 ounces of gold and 3 million ounces of silver. Did our own test work and found that traditional leaching was going to be difficult. So then Sun River Gold came in, and that's a 4-person private company, 4 engineers who have a lot of experience with tailings around the world and in Mexico. But the whole thing is it's a cleanup operation. So it's reprocessing. So you move the tailings out of the town and into a more industrial location where there's agricultural land that's not really being used because it's not very fertile. And then so the municipality ends up with land that they can build houses, whatever they want, and it has taken away any potential contaminants. And then both the municipality and our company end up with a net profit interest from that. So we're not spending any money on it right now. Neither does the municipality, but they get a benefit.
And that could be a nice little cash flow to the company that can help cover some of your exploration costs.
Yes, absolutely. And they're because they're private, they don't do things under 43101. So I can't really share the cash flow analyses with, but I've been told that it definitely it'll be significant. And they starting paying this coming year. So that means they know they're going to be making money. Yeah.
You may not be able to talk about the resource and the grade and the cash flow, but you can certainly talk about the checks when you receive them.
Exactly. That's when we'll be able to report. Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Okay, Joey. Well, I want to thank you for coming on. I want to thank you for being a sponsor because you helped me put this stuff together, and be able to do the reporting that I do. My sponsors are very generous in that way. And you've been very generous with your time. And I'm a big believer in what XGC has in both Mexico and Newfoundland. But my big thing is, I mentioned to you on an email that I think that El Oro is a company maker.
Yeah, I agree. No, absolutely.
Okay, well, we're going to do more of these in the future. Joey, did you have anything you wanted to close on?
No, I think that was great. Very lengthy. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to close. Just hang on, and we'll have a little chat at the end.
Okay, super.
So there you go, folks. I mean, to me, it's kind of surprising to see a company with a $12.5 million valuation that has a project that, if it was in Canada or the United States, would be, it'd be Swiss cheese with holes. Looking for the gold mineralization that continues at depth, along strike, new veins, especially because there was 8 million ounces of gold equivalent produced from that. I mean, you don't often get a chance to get a cluster of veins that there was that much production that still remains to be underexplored. So I think that Xali XGC gives investors a couple great swings at home runs. Well, probably a couple just in Mexico alone. Then they got the stuff in Newfoundland. So I expect that 2022 is going to be a very good year for the company. And, even looking at their stock chart, it seemed to have bottomed in around October, late October. It's been trending upwards. And I think that that's just a precursor of what's to come. So as always, my shows are for information purposes only. It's important for you to speak with your financial advisors and do your homework. One of the things I know about Joey, she's a very talented geologist and has a great team around her. And one of the indicators of that for investors, whether you're looking at Xali or any other company, is go look at the data that they're putting out. When I'm always trying to differentiate between someone who's trying to promote their stock, we call that mine the public, and those that are trying to find a mine. And the quality of their data is always a good indicator of what kind of company they are. Joey's been around the block for a long time, had some major success in the past, and I think she's on to another one here. So do your homework and check out Xali Gold. Have a great